Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and joining me for a little bit of a late post-game and heading into the next agonizing, long, somewhat mini bye of a week to take a look at Thursday night's Steelers-Patriots debacle. A one and only Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, this is usually where I'd ask, how are you doing? But I could take about 3 guesses and probably would be right on all of them.
I am not fully recovered from the trauma. Let's just put it that way.
You know, it's funny. I just wonder how much these games get people down, get people sick. I'm wondering if they got money riding on. You know what I mean? That too. You put some bets down. I actually laid a bet on him. Zach talked me into it. You would think this is funny coming from me, but Mitch Trubisky first TD. It was also paying plus 1,700. So it was, I didn't put much down on it, like $20 or whatever house money that I've been riding with. But unfortunately, I probably should have had that money better placed somewhere else in the second coming of Joe Montana combined with Steve Young. It would have been Bill Walsh's perfect quarterback, Bailey Zappi, apparently, who had 3 touchdown passes in this game. We're going to go through this kind of blow by blow just because I think going blow by blow will cover everything, to be completely honest.
There's part of me that just thinks you're being a masochist.
Well, I'm going to skip over some parts. So just to jump in, I have the first half summary here. And the Steelers were down 21-10 first half going into the locker room. The New England Patriots had 11 first downs, 10 of those by passing the football. 10 of those by passing the football. The Steelers had 8 first downs somehow, 3 by rushing, 3 by passing, and 2 by penalties. Steelers weren't actually called for a whole lot of penalties, believe it or not. I cringe anytime that Chooks comes in, 76 is doing this. I'm eligible and doesn't line up properly, or the team has to burn a timeout. And it's going to be a lot of what the topic is today is Mike Tomlin on the hot seat after historic back-to-back losses. Of course, I should put home losses too. Not only losing to 2-win teams this late in the season, and this really reinforces a narrative that I once called a myth about playing down to inferior opponents. This was definitely there. I will say at least the Cardinals had Kyler Murray and James Conner, who they didn't have most of the season. I can't explain what you do with a New England Patriots team that scored like 6 points or something over 3 games on offense, averaging 12 a game, and ends up with 21 points in the first half. I know how they got there, but this was a total team collapse, and we're trying to figure out is there anything left to salvage? Like, there's still 4 games left, but the Steelers went from pretty much being in the driver's seat for at least a wild card, if not competing for the division with the Ravens looming at the end of the season, and the Ravens with a tough schedule.
Yep.
They're out of it right now until Sunday's games are played.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be realistic, right? They're out of it in the sense of they're not going to be favored to win any game the rest of the year. Right? They're not going to be favored to win the Bengals game at home at this point. The Bengals came to life and beat the Jaguars, right? So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. If you ask me, that's probably the only game that they have a shot at. I don't see how they're going to go to Indianapolis and win that game. They're certainly not going to beat Seattle in Seattle. I don't think they're going to beat the Ravens in Baltimore with the way they've been playing, and I'm not confident they'll beat the Bengals at home. This is the last 2 days have shattered any idea of what's going on, and it really just is a function of exposing the weaknesses that exist in the team, which we already knew. Okay, you lose Kenny Pickett, you know you've got nothing but a hot mess backing him up. Mitch is not good. Okay, and so that's a problem and a weakness that's clearly exposed. I don't know what people are screaming about, thinking they were going to be able to easily run the ball against the number one rushing defense in the league. That wasn't going to happen. You needed complementary, football. You needed the pass to get the run available to you. You just weren't going to run the ball down their throat. And what did we say in pregame? What did we say? If they don't find a way to cover up the weakness of the tight end being able to take advantage of the off the street, grocery bagging, retired linebackers that they currently have, they're going to get torched. And what happened in the first half? They got torched. And who did most of the torching? The tight ends.
Yes, sir. That's one of many problems. First series, New England gets the ball. Steelers won the coin toss and deferred, thankfully.
Yay.
8 plays, 75 yards. And TJ Watt was injured right off the first play. Already playing on a short week. A lot of this is going to sound like excuses. It's not excuses for the way this team played. It's just just put it all together to form the puzzle of, in fact, the puzzle, let's just take the pieces and throw them loose into the box, because that's what it pretty much looks like. It's not pretty whatsoever. No. It's not pretty. So they tried to use a platoon of inside linebackers, and they've tried to use Blake Martinez gets called out of the tunnel. I mean, the energy in the place was still rocking at kickoff, okay? Because you had the color rush uniforms, you had the gold painted end zones, and you're like, Blake Martinez is the first guy out of the tunnel. And you're like, who? And it's like, well, at least I know, like, they announced him, so I know who 40 is when he's on the field, because otherwise I may not have known. And it kind of goes downhill just from the introductions, to be completely honest. You had Alex Highsmith also get hurt early on in this game. Pretty much some people were thinking the way he was put in, I guess, a full Nelson wrestling hold as the tackles continue to do whatever they want in the NFL, and pretty much NFL's full of crap. I'm going to try not to swear. This is why I was tired yesterday. We could get on the same page for a Friday show.
Yeah.
But I probably would have been swearing a lot more. It was a car ride, because I stayed over in Pittsburgh. It was a car ride of almost exclusive, nonstop pain of Steelers callers in on SiriusXM NFL radio, of which some of them, they didn't just let these guys just talk whatever, and we'll get into some of that, right? But the defense, for giving up all of these points, okay, the Steelers do come out. Mitch should have had an interception on this first drive. There was a pass.
Got bailed out on that one.
Bailed out on a pass interference. It's one of the few times they find like a little dump off pass. He's looking for George Pickens a couple of times. I guess that was good. I mean, Najee had a good run to start the game too. And it was like, okay, maybe some of this is going to help a little bit. Then Chooks comes in, and they lose 2 yards with Jalen Warren. Now they got a little, and then Mitch gets sacked with his happy feet, not releasing the ball, throwing off his back feet, just everything just not good. And I got plenty to say about him too. And thank God you got Chris Boswell, could kick a 56-yard field goal at 7-3. Okay, they answered at least. It felt good to start in those last 2 plays. So let me ask you a couple of things here. Strategy-wise, I know he wanted to take some shots. Mitch was talking about being more aggressive, yada, yada, yada. You had a lot of both backs on the field at times. They tried some misdirection things. I think some people were baffled. There's way at the end of the game. Let's save it for that. That's why I'm going blow by blow, sort of, kind of, because there's plenty bad there as far as actual plays and who's rubber stamping, who thought this was a good idea. But yeah, I thought the plays where they were doing the tosses, where they were trying to stretch the Patriots defense, keep them wide, keep them out of the box, I thought it was at least solid ideas. They're still within the confines of a Matt Canada playbook. I don't think that, like, 80, 90%. Hold on. I'll pull it up for you. Maybe 90% of the fans that are out there realize it's still a Matt Canada playbook. You're just trying to call what might be best for your quarterback out of that given a day or two of practice on a Thursday night football game with a backup. So did you have any problems necessarily? It's so tough to say because it stunk. it stunk, but the way they approached it, maybe.
Here's the problem. This is not the Patriots defense can be exposed, right? But you're not going to do it by trying to run the ball down their throats. They are fast enough to get out wide, right? And, it really was a function of they had to find a way to move the ball. And I just don't know that they were built to do it right now. You needed to be able to try. I mean, they sent DB blitzes so often, and they got pressure with them almost every time. Not always. I think Najee and maybe Jalen both had a nice pickup on a blitz at one point, but Mitch is. I don't even know how to describe the way he plays, right? I don't know whether you're not in his head, right? Neither one of us is in his head. We can't actually say he doesn't see the field well, but it sure does appear like he doesn't see the field well. I think he's terrified, especially after the second real interception, to actually let loose with the ball. He looks like he is playing petrified out of his mind, right? I am terrified to make another mistake. I'm terrified to do anything wrong, so I'm not going to take any chances at all. And then when he does, it's like, again, I don't want to jump too far ahead either, but, when he does, it just looks horrible.
You caught me in the middle of a beverage break.
But that's why I just do it on camera.
Long pause. Yeah, I know, and I try to look professional. I'm not saying that I always am. It's very tough to remain. It's even tough to let's put it real. You know how hard it is to do this show after watching the two shit shows we just watched back to back? I know most people think that we're always sunshine and rainbows. I know you've got some strong words about coaching, Mike Tomlin. I got some strong words about individual players. And I also got some, at least reasoning as to why this sucks. You know what I said a couple of weeks ago. Cole Holcomb went down, and then who went down? Quan Alexander went down. As soon as Quan was then out, I was over here. I was doing the old turtle head with my butt cheeks because I knew what was coming. I've seen it. I saw it in 2017 when Ryan Shazier went down. And then I saw it practically every season since. And you had a young Devin Bush that did okay in his first year or two. And then when he went down, bye-bye, perfect season. They were still able to get by, and then they didn't have another guy to complement TJ Watt on the other side when Bud Dupree went down, and bam. And look exactly what is transpired once again. You lost your inside linebackers, who are your defensive play callers. Landon Roberts, he gave it a go. You didn't even know he was playing almost all the way up until the inactives. Inactives comes out. The guy is playing his ass off. Michael Walker wasn't a liability early, was a liability in this game. He slips and falls, but before we get to that, you did have almost a 3-and-out. You had Hunter Henry called for an offensive pass interference. Patriots punt. 57-yard punt that's going to be significant as I continue to say this. Brian, one of the last points you made last week was one of the first points I'll make in this one. Let me go through. There's a lot of possessions here. The Steelers had a lot of them. How many times did they have the ball? 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Bang, Matt's with Joe. 7, 9. Let's see, 4 punts and a pick. That's 14. 14 times they had the football. On their 31, 21, 15, 25, 20, 25, 9, 17, 26. They had a pick, and then the block punt where they got it on the New England 16 and New England's 26. And then you have their own 20, 27, and 13-yard line. That's not going to cut it in the National Football League. I'm beyond. And it's because, maybe the first punt wasn't so bad. It's 3 and out. They don't get anything. Mitch looks for, let's see here, Pat Freiermuth, nothing. Najee for 4 yards. Mitch tries to go deep to a pass that's nowhere near. Allen Robinson. They punt. 48-yard punt. Okay. Then you've got Behringer. The Patriots get kind of forced out here. The defense, other than giving up some points, honestly, they held Ezekiel Elliott to 10 carries for 22 yards in his first half. 2.2.
Keep him from catching the ball.
But Bailey Zappi goes 14 to 21 for 196 and 3 touchdowns all in the first half. That's a big problem. But that manifests itself after the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky gets picked off to start the second quarter. This drive goes, 5 plays, 12 yards. Even though he was throwing the ball down there, I don't know exactly where it was going. It didn't always seem like. So, anyways, New England gets the ball on their 11, and Ezekiel Elliott, 3-yard run, and then the pass to Hunter Henry. I believe this is the one where Walker slips, completely misses him. At least last Sunday, Joey Porter reached out and grabbed someone, and what didn't allow the TD. Didn't have this kind of luck this week. Really hard to find any positives at all in this game. It just kept going downhill there. Now it's 14 to 3.
So put the graphic back up, but this time it's maths with me.
Okay, we don't have the budget to change. Yes, we do. There we go.
There we go. Okay, maths with me. All right.
Maths with me. Maths with Brian.
Maths with Brian. In general terms, right? In order to score points, right?
Hold on, that means more than one.
Right. In order to score points on a drive, even if you start at the 25. You gotta get somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 yards, right? That might let you kick a field goal with Boswell. To get a touchdown, obviously you got to get 75 yards. So their drives, 31, they managed to get the field goal. There you go, above 30. 4, 12, 2, 5. Then we get the 75-yard drive. Remember, we've been saying this all year. They got one good drive in Mitch Trubisky every game. One good drive, 75, 32, 7, 9, 26, 13, 22, 45 for the end of the game. All of those would indicate you're not getting points, except for the 75-yard one.
Well, you look at the Patriots, 75 to kick it off, 2, 28, 11, 6, 59. Now it depends on field position. That field position thing I was talking about. 28, 11, 12, 8, 29, and 9.
You gotta give up on the 11 one because they started on the 11.
Yes, sir.
All right.
But just that's so
they start on the 11 and get a touchdown. We start on the 12 and turn the ball over.
Yeah, that's the shame. Steelers go 3 and out. Harvin punts 45 yards. That gets down to the New England 28. Still not 50, 60-yard punt. Doesn't get a bounce, anything like that. Steelers defense. 3 and out. Dude from New England. It ended up being a touchback. Almost didn't. 66 yards. You're seeing it come in my direction, and I'm like, why don't we have somebody like that? Why? Like, it's just, another thing that doesn't help your team with the field position battle. It drives me absolutely bonkers. So let's see. The Steelers get the ball back. You have Chukwuekorfor tagged on 2nd and 7 after a Mitch scramble. Chooks is tagged for an illegal formation.
You come in as tackle eligible.
Yeah.
Right? Look.
How many times now?
Right?
It's at least 3, right?
Yeah,
gotta be 3.
Chooks is probably out on the season at this point. He's probably a little bit, bitter, a little bit upset. Whether he portrays that or not, whether he's ever said anything that would indicate it, he lost his job, and now he's coming in as Zach Banner, right? So, he's coming in tackle eligible. But all you got to do is know you have to cover up.
That's all I was looking at the remainder of the game. I was looking at it when it happened. And I was like, cover up, cover up, cover up. saw it yanked out of the referee's pocket. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And it just, let me continue because we're getting places. So let's see. This was quarter 4. We're somewhere in the second quarter. Still about 10 minutes left. Presley Harvin, the second, the third, whatever the hell he is, from the 25 is the original line of scrimmage, boots it 34 yards to the New England 41. That's damn near the middle of the field. Usually when teams get it in that spot, they can at least get
a little math here.
Yes.
50 is the middle.
Mm-hmm.
The 41 is pretty close to the middle of the field.
Yeah, it's just on the other side, because if it was on the Steelers one, then you're in field goal range for people like Chris Boswell. That'll be important later, folks. I don't want to sound too much like the people that are on local radio there, because they were poo-pooing this game before it even started. They just fed them. This was like putting more fuel into the machine instead of just letting it run dry. No one was able to just shut them up. At least maybe Mark Madden can take his hot take of Mitch Trubisky being better than Kenny Pickett and swallow that one, although he'll still find some way to defend that. I'm sorry, I will go there here for a second. Minus that Kenny's not turning the ball over, right?
Yeah.
And he's protecting the football. And I think that makes a major difference in this game. He probably connects on several of these passes that just sail God knows where. Or I'm watching players run free. I haven't seen some people come out with some all 22 to say, Mitch missed this guy and Mitch missed that, because you probably could do it on every play. I was okay. I thought Mitch did okay coming in cold last game against the Cardinals. I think if Kenny plays those 6 quarters, the result could be different in both of those games. I say could because the defense still is a head scratcher. They end up giving up a 28-yard pass after this crap punt and then a 24-yard touchdown pass. Once again, Bailey Zappi, not Patrick Mahomes, not Tom Brady, not Peyton Manning, not Fran Tarkenton, Bailey Zappi. And a team that has not scored. They scored 0 points against the Chargers. Do you think the Chargers defense is good? No. They come to Pittsburgh and play a road game and embarrass and pick apart this defense. So this defense is playing with some pieces parts. Okay? I get it. Michael Walker. You got Trenton Thompson, who's a safety, kind of playing roaming middle of the field, trying to help. You got Patrick Peterson playing a big slot in a lot of cases. That's what they did in the second half. That's what worked differently, except then they couldn't stop the run.
Yeah.
And Landon Roberts, you had Alex Highsmith go out. So Nick Herbig's playing a lot now. Keanu Neal has been out for a while, so it's DeMonte Casey. Now I see why Neal was playing and not Casey. And Casey's supposed to be this third safety. He goes leaping for lizards or whatever and misses the pass, misses the big play. I like him going for the splash, but that's all I could do is just throw my hands here. A lot of people are going to talk about, I think the biggest thing, we try to get to halftime here before I got into this, but Mike Tomlin and the amount of talent that he has, yada, yada. Man, this team is always snake bitten with injuries, and he tries to get the most of what he can, but at some point you got to realize, how many times did they have Cam Hayward on the field this year? TJ Watt the year before getting dinged, and Minka being out for a month. And they just never seem to have all the pieces at the same time. Well, every team deals with this on this type of level and losing starters.
Every team doesn't deal with being on your third rendition of a linebacker group, or maybe at this point, even your fourth rendition of a linebacker group within the same season. That's not, people need to understand, right? The middle of the field, right? The middle linebacking group, we knew it was a weakness last year, and we weren't getting, we weren't in the same boat. We didn't have as many injuries. We had some. Miles Jack was hurt some, whatnot. But they just weren't good, right? And this year, we had some stuff taken care of. But when you're middle, it's just like on the offensive side of the ball, right? Is when your center is not strong, right? You've got a weakness there, and the weakness in the center of that line causes problems. When you have a weakness in the middle of your defense, it's going to cause huge problems. And we have a catastrophic weakness in the middle of this defense with the middle linebackers. And you can't blame that on Mike Tomlin. You can't blame that on Kenny Pickett. You can't blame that on anybody. It just is, that is a circumstance that exists, right? And it's unfortunate. Now, it sucks. And yes, other teams have to deal with injuries, but not usually at that level. You miss a guy here, you miss a guy there. Shit happens. Okay, I get it. If that's what we were dealing with, we'd be like, all right, yeah, it's not great, but hey, what it is. But, it's lose Cam, lose Minka. TJ's probably playing the whole game with a concussion, which I hope they're not going to get in trouble for, but somebody had to let him back in, right? And the rest of the defense is, generally speaking, backups.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. For people that are like, well, how could they not prepare or do this? They signed how many guys to play this position, and that's why it's soft. And you're going deep at some spots, and maybe some guys just weren't as good as you thought they were going to be, and some other guys don't really get a chance to shine. At, like, you think Larry Ogunjobi's going to look any good when you got Nick Herbig and other people like subbing in, and Cam still playing maybe at 80%, and
Benton got
TJ
dinged,
gets hurt.
Everybody's a little beat up at this point, right? Mm-hmm. But you just have there wasn't a lot of pressure just hasn't been existing, and people have been noticing it, right? TJ's not getting home, Alex Highsmith's not getting home, the middle of the line's not getting home. There's not as much pressure. It feels like the quarterback has a lot of time, right? Part of that is because they cannot bring extra guys. Right? You can't, Landon Roberts plays a big role in coming in as a blitzing linebacker, but you can't blitz guys from the middle because your middle is already weak, right? There's so many problems with what's going on with the defense. Yes, it is hugely disappointing. Yes, you would like coaching to figure out a way to handle it, but there does come a point in time where you just go, what the hell? And they were never, for anybody that's out there thinking that they were going to be on the Shaquille Leonard, whatever in that lottery to try and get him, Philly signs him. They were never going to be able to do that anyway, right? Not because they didn't have the money, not because they couldn't have the room. He wanted to go someplace where he was going to win a Super Bowl. We weren't there. He's not. Who's coming here to play with Mitch Trubisky?
People come to play for Mike Tomlin, though. But for the most part, people are not looking at Pittsburgh as their vacation destination. You're not getting tax breaks that you get playing in Dallas and Houston and in the places in Florida. Okay, there's got to be some incentive, and I know people are going to scoff and they're going to laugh, and it's too much casual fan stuff. You can't prepare for the number of injuries that they had and the amount of short time to try and put together a game plan. I mean, hats off. You have Bill Belichick and then Bill O'Brien, and these guys have been doing it for a long time. And Bill O'Brien, formerly a head coach too, would say what you will, versus the makeshift offensive hodgepodge that you got on the Steelers side and with Mitch Trubisky. I do think that things are a little different if you have Kenny Pickett out there. I know Kenny Pickett's only thrown 2 touchdowns in however many games, and people want to say that, but I think he at least moves the chains and is able to offer something a little bit different than just throwing into space. Speaking of throwing into space, the Steelers do answer after this. It was 21-3. You get down, and let's see, they shoot up a pretty good amount of time on the drive, almost 5 minutes, 8 plays, 75 yards, where he finds Deontay Johnson in the back of the end zone. I did not watch any replay. I did not have a chance to do any film, Brian. But from where I was, that ball looked like it was not where... looked like Deontay looked up and adjusted and made a hell of a catch in order for that to connect. And I think that's a little significant later in the game when people were trying to say, well, this is the same play. And I'm like, well, this pass was a little bit better, but it still wasn't exactly on the money.
No, look, neither one of our quarterbacks that have played this year are the definition of accurate. every now and then Kenny throws a pass and you go, well, crap, that was the best pass he threw all game. I'm still waiting for the ability to say that about a Mitch Trubisky ball, because even when it is a ball that you're like, oh, maybe that was the best pass, it was still pretty bad. And you're like, well, okay. Maybe he should be able to throw a better one than that one, shouldn't he? No, it wasn't great. It's just.
And here's decent coaching. Tomlin tries to call. He calls his first time out. 1st and 10. New England has the ball. 250 takes down to 246. But then Ty Montgomery runs the football. You might remember him. Wide receiver turned running back ages ago. It's still bouncing around the league, and he's with New England. And he runs for 17. Now it's ticking. You get down to the 2-minute warning. And Bailey Zappi goes and throws a pass to Montgomery. And it's like, well, thank you for stopping the clock again. It's 3rd down. And they convert it. Exactly 8 yards to Hunter Henry. And you're just like, oh, cripes. Landon Roberts gets the sack on Zappi here. You use the second time of the timeouts. And then New England, burns up some of the clock, goes all the way, ticks it all the way down to 29 before their punter is able to boot it. 51 yards. These are numbers we don't usually see from a certain Steelers punter. You get to halftime, you're like, is there any hope here? The Steelers get the ball first. Let's see what they end up doing. They end up with a drive that goes, let's see here, 11 plays for 32 yards. 11 plays for 32 yards. There was a no-gainer. There somehow got a first down. Then Jaylen Warren loses 7 yards on a run, and you're like, ugh. Then Jaylen Warren gets it back, and you have a 3rd and 10 where Connor Hayward does his little best track and field impression, jumping over and just somehow getting it to the sticks. That's significant, at least, that Connor Hayward knew where the sticks were, because there's some other guys that we're going to talk about that do not know where the sticks are, whether they're running or throwing for it. But this ends up finishing off with Mitch not finding some of the receivers and getting sacked at the tail end of this. And Presley Harvin boots it 51 yards from the Steelers' 49, which ends in a touchback. So he gets a 51-yard punt when you don't need a 51-yard punt. The defense, Elliott starts to heat up. 16-yard run. There was an offensive holding call here on the Patriots. Zappi, he finds Ezekiel Elliott, who actually Elliott, a lot of people were happy about Elliott's performance. If you're a fan of him, we was from the Ohio State University, Brian. We used to watch him a long time ago, Cowboys, everything else. And he had 7 catches for 72 yards. That's more.
That's where he did his damage.
That's more than catches and yards than any Steelers receiver had in this game. The leading receiver in this game, Deontay Johnson, had a 25-yard catch for that touchdown, 3 for 57. He was targeted 7 times, and Jaylen Warren had 4 for 29. He ran the ball, Elliott did, for 68. So he was about almost at 150 all-purpose yards in this game, touched the ball about 30 times. What happens? We've been saying this for years, for the folks that are our 2%ers that we like to say that stick around for the whole show and watch everything we put out. What happens with Steelers running backs touch the ball fewer than somewhere between 20 to 25 times, I want to say? What is usually the result in those games? They lose. And Najee Harris has 12 carries in this game. Jaylen Warren has 7. They didn't get 25. Mitch scrambles about 8 times. The run game, this team was averaging 165 a game over their previous 5. They end up with 82. Both backs bad. 2.4 average for Najee and a 1.6 for Jaylen Warren. Absolutely miserable. And they knew that they were going to have to do something. It was the same thing we said. What's Bill Belichick going to do? He's going to take away what you do best. So you run the football. He's not going to let George Pickens near the ball. He's going to dare Mitch Trubisky to throw it. And Mitch somehow still completed over 60% of his passes for 190 yards. Don't ask me how any of that happens. 5.4 per attempt. You look at somebody like George Pickens who caught the ball.
Go back to that.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. 5.4 per attempt. Yes. That's how it happens that he's 60%. He's throwing it 5 yards. He's dumping it off all the time, right? Because he is afraid to go down the field. Even when he doesn't have any choice, doesn't have any choice. But how many times on some of these drives is it dump off pass nowhere near where the first down is going to be, hope the guy can run and get it, or pass short of the sticks? How many times? And that has been consistent with Mitch even from last year. I said this at one point on the X or the Twitter or whatever it was. This is what you get when this offense plays a good defense. And the Patriots are a good defense. We said that in advance of the game. We look bad when we play a good defense because we're bad at offense. Our offense is bad.
Yeah, I was going to get there too. George Pickens, 5 catches for 19 yards, a 3.8 average per catch. There were catches in this game where I said, "What? They didn't even gain a yard on that?" I'm like befuddled. Like I couldn't believe it. And this is your top receiver. Let me talk about George Pickens for a second. He's fired up. He feels like at least somebody is. I'm going to say that much. He's animated on the sidelines, and people, Steelers fans, get mad about that. At least somebody gives a crap about what the hell's going on out there and may actually try and kick some sense, kick these guys in the rear and get them on board too. Like, you want somebody to take charge, and then you bitch that somebody takes charge. Whether Deontay Johnson is saying so, whether Minka has his post-game comments, whether it was Najee before the game saying some of it. Now, some of it sounds passive-aggressive. It sounds petty. It sounds like the whole thing's burning down. But some guys are really angry, and they're competitors, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is happening with this team. It has fallen apart at the seams.
Yeah, I think the iconic image of George Pickens in this game is this one. Right?
Yeah.
It's standing in the end zone going, what more do I have to do? There's no one near me. And you didn't get me the ball. Right? And this is a huge failing of Mitch Trubisky. He doesn't easily come off his primary target. Right? And when he does, he is just not good at seeing the field. He misses guys who are wide open often. And yes, he was under pressure. And there were times, look, I'm not going to say a whole hell of a lot of good about Mitch Trubisky after that game, but he did stand in at times and survey the field and try and find guys.
Here or there.
A couple times. Not often, and he got the happy feet, and oftentimes he was throwing off the back foot, and some of those throws just looked like, what the hell did you do?
3 defenders, dude. As soon as I saw him go where he went with the ball on that one, it's like, oh my goodness. I saw it happen before it happened. I was hoping if it would have hit the ground. Let's jump to this next set of plays. Keanu Benton got dinged in this game too.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh my goodness, just how much more can happen? There was a holding penalty on the Patriots, so this ends up Cam Hayward gets a sack on Zappy. They end up punting 43 yards. That wasn't their best punt. Down to the Steelers 26. The Steelers go 3 and out from their 33. Presley Harvin. Hold on. Trubisky, a 5-yard pass to Pickens. Najee Harris runs and loses a yard, and then Pickens passes, or Trubisky goes to Pickens again for only 3 yards. And Harvin boots it 36 yards in. I'm trying to still bite my tongue on the Mike Tomlin stuff. Make sure I come back to special teams because special teams does have something else for us to say as we're getting down. This is why I'm going blow by blow so I don't forget a whole bunch of stuff. Now, this is the next series where Zappy looks for Juju. He's picked off by Michael Walker. Michael Walker, a linebacker covering a wide receiver. This is a smart place to go. It gets tipped, gets hit somewhere. Walker ends up with it. I'm like, holy crap, dude. I was more like,
Minka tips the ball.
Yeah, I was more like slurring. I know some people, if I say, JC, they'll get upset, so I won't say it to fully spell it out. But I'm like, I said that because they needed to score there, because I'm just like, oh my goodness, if they didn't score on defense, what are they going to do here? Najee Harris runs for a yard. Trubisky, passing complete, doesn't even say the target that he threw it to in the damn game book. That's, That's a problem. They don't even know who he was throwing it to. And then he scrambles up the middle for 7 yards, short of the sticks because he slides like a damn... Look, Kenny Pickett gets hurt, laying it all on the line, putting his head straight out there and diving for it. 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, arthritis in his freaking bones, stretches out, goes for it. He moves at a snail's pace at this point and gets there for a first down, for a touchdown, for his team, risks his body, and this sissy lays up with the damn baseball slide 2 yards short of the sticks when you've been gifted the ball in the freaking red zone. I have never been so upset in my life. If there is anything, I understand. This is where I'm going to go now. Because let's finish this out. These guys fail to convert on this too. 4th and 2, and it's a short right pass to Jaylen Warren. Another one of these dump off and hope that they could get something there. I understand. You've been running into a brick wall of New England Patriots players. There's nothing else that you could do here, but it shouldn't even have come to that. Mitch should have laid out. I think you're right, dude. I think he was scared. He doesn't want to get hurt. He doesn't want to make like certain mistakes or whatever. But yeah, he'll hurl the ball downfield, or he was careless with it in other ways. I don't understand it. It's like everything you could do wrong, everything that can go wrong did. Somehow, the Steelers get the ball back. An 11-yard punt blocked by Miles Killebrew.
Redemption.
Baby, can they score here? Now, this is where some of the fans have got this wrong. They're talking about, well, should Mike Tomlin have taken the points there? They should have kicked the field goal instead of what ended up with the block punt play. Would have been inconsequential here because they would have kicked the ball off. There wouldn't have been a block punt. You don't know what happens after that. Right. So they get some redemption. Okay, Mitch runs the football this time and gets over it. They were on the 1 yard line. They didn't get it on the first one. They tried some type of pass to Connor Hayward. Darnell Washington, too, in this game he was not Mount Washington in this game either in his blocks. I'm going to mention him because, this was the Connor Hayward. I'm sorry, Connor Hayward trick play.
Yeah, they tried to have him throw the ball. Yeah.
Was interesting. Interesting call. I get it. You probably want anybody but Mitch to throw the ball at this point.
I'm 100% against that call.
Yeah, because he could have got turned over again.
That is not, you desperately need the score. I get it. You're like, what do we do? What do we do? Oh my God. Run the damn ball, right? Put Darnell Washington in as a half. I don't care what you do. Figure out a way, man up, and stuff the ball in. Right? Don't get cute. It's the problem I've had with Matt Canada. It's the problem I had with Randy Fichtner. They get cute. Stop getting cute. Just man up and power the ball in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here you go. They score. Mitch leans over. 2-point conversion. Successful to Pat Freiermuth. They're 2 yards out on a 2-point conversion, right? Where was this play on 4th and 2 just before? Like, yeah. Dude, I can't because somehow Steelers get the ball back. There's a touchback, 55-yard punt. They get the ball back, and Mitch Trubisky, they go for it on 4th and 1.
They get it.
All right, Steelers in this game, I should mind you, 3
of 14
on third. 3 of 14 on third down, 1 of 3 on 4th down. Okay.
First of all, you got the play earlier in the quarter where Mitch burns a timeout for no apparent reason. Right?
Yeah.
But it's probably whatever the reason was, I don't know. But now you've got this play, right? This is the 4th down play where they call a timeout to go for it. Right? Just go for it. If that's what you're doing, what more? Like, that play didn't need a lot of conversation, right? Was it you were just like, oh, I wasn't there, and they didn't really talk about this on the Amazon telecast. Were they gonna punt and they called the timeout? Or were they out there lined up? Or they just didn't know what the hell they were doing?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing this up. There was something going on communication-wise where Trubisky kept coming out to the hash marks, and Sullivan was out on the field, out in the green.
They did say at one point they replaced his headgear.
Yeah, something. Okay, thank you. I did not know that, but that's when the first time out occurred. Something happened with that after Darnell Washington hauled in the one pass. And then they get that together and then call whatever garbage from the 8-yard line, tried to get to Pat Freiermuth. I don't think it was that good of a pass, but Freiermuth was mauled.
Should have had it.
And then they scored, right? So now we're to the point where they get the ball back, and you're right. There's a pass that goes 3rd and 5, only goes 4 yards to Freiermuth. It's not at the sticks once again. Guys are not running routes to the sticks. Passes are not going to the sticks, whether the passes are leading or behind or whatever that causes this mix-up. You had a bunch of bad snaps from Mason Cole once again that didn't help make anything more fluid with whoever's playing quarterback. And now this was one of those passes. You go to George Pickens and you go to George Pickens again, no gain. And then it's an incomplete through Freiermuth's hands. He overthrows him. He has one that goes behind Freiermuth or behind Pickens at some point during some of this too. You're like, hey, it's 21-18. They're within 3. They're within 3. You know what I mean? Let's see what these guys could end up doing here.
Skip ahead to drive 13.
Well, we will. Hold on. 4th and 3. Pittsburgh's 38. Christian Kuntz. My cousin, that's his boy. He sees him all the time. Brad's laughing if he's watching this. Just caught him again at Ross Park Ball today. He's like, guess what?
This was a total bullshit call.
How many times did the Steelers punt before this, Brian?
He does it every time.
Hold on a second. How many punts? Let me see possession wise. We got this should
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There was 5 punts before this, and
Yeah.
you mean to tell me this is when you call it? You saw the New England player do one of these things, holding his head, knowing that he effed up, and it was totally on him. They huddle together and come up with that. Now, this doesn't cost the Steelers the game because they've already dug themselves a hole.
Yeah, it didn't.
But it doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
Doesn't help. This is the other team makes a mistake, and they're basically rewarded for it an extra 5 yards. Everybody was celebrating this on the sideline.
Maybe the next drive we have better field position.
Yeah.
Even if let's say we don't get another first down, right? But we've got that one instead of kicking from 5 yards behind, we now have a first down. We gain 4 yards. We get the stop from New England if we had to punt. We get the ball back. Who knows? Okay. Maybe we just have better field position. All right. It's a bad call. We all know the refs stink. It didn't cost them the game. And I want the commenters who keep whining that we are blaming the refs to hear that line. It didn't cost, the refs did not cost the Steelers the game, right? The Steelers cost the Steelers the game. The refs did not. I also, because we had some comments on the last podcast from I don't know who that was just basically calling us apologists, and we will always apologize for Mike Tomlin. I hope you're listening this week when we get to the point in the show where we're talking about what the title is.
Yeah, it's coming any second here, but I did not want to forget that main detail. And now Harvin at least kicks the ball 53 yards. They pin New England. They get conservative here, and they run the ball 3 times with Zeke, and they get stopped. It's 4th and 1. They're not going to. They decide to boot.
Belichick doesn't go for it, right?
Yeah.
This is. There is there's no earthly reason that he should not have gone for it there, right?
Well,
they've been able to move the ball almost any time they'd wanted to, right? 4th and 1, I know, I get it. We're immediately in field goal range.
From their 22, and then you end up with a tie game even if we don't move the ball.
But it's over if they get it, right?
Essentially, yeah, there's 2.5 minutes left in the game.
And what else did he have to lose? He's 2-8 or 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't have anything to lose. I was stunned he didn't go for it. But I get it. I get it. All right.
He's going to make Mitch Trubisky try and beat you. And Mitch Trubisky's not because he misses Pat Freiermuth. He does hit Najee Harris. There's a little 14-yard scamper here. He misses Deontay Johnson. He gets Deontay again for 8. 3rd and 2, misses George Pickens.
Right. Stop right there.
Yes.
This is the key series of the game right here. 3rd and 2. You know you're going for it on 4th down. You know you're going for it on fourth down. Take your out and man up and run the damn ball. You needed 2 yards. 2 yards. If you get those 2 yards, you are close to Boswell's range and you can tie the game. If you do this dumb throw stuff, which you know hasn't worked, Mitch, and then so they incomplete, miss the 3rd and 2. It's 4th and 2. And every single person in the stadium's head explodes because they go long on 4th and 2. And you had Allen Robinson open for the first down on 4th and 2. You take the worst low percentage shot you can take, and this will feed right into what I'm going to say about Tomlin, especially with how his response was at the press conference, even though I know what else is he going to say, right? Yeah, we did a dumb thing. Okay, but 4th and 2, and they throw the ball long to Deontay Johnson into multiple coverage, and of course, it's incomplete. Game over.
Yeah, and I'm saying they actually got the ball to out to the 41. We were just talking about the 41, their own 41. What do you need? About 20 yards you got to get 20 yards. And you can, it's 1st and 10 from the 41, 20 yards, and you're in Boswell territory.
They gave the ball up at the 49.
Yes. Boswell, or the guy in front of me. And I was like, look, this Browns game, they couldn't get 20 yards in that game either. And it could have been a different result. Same exact thing. Can't even get 20 yards in the middle of the field where it's not even predictable play calling, to be completely honest. I mean, you got everything dialed up you've got everything in your back pocket. You're north of the 2-minute warning still, and you've still got at least the one timeout, even though you burned the other ones that you probably shouldn't have, for the various reasons we mentioned already. Yeah, you dial up this pass that 2 yards. I would have even been okay with the Jalen Warren little dump thing.
If third play they ran the ball, knowing they're going to run it on 4th and 2, right?
Yeah,
I'm fine with it. Get 1 yard on 3rd and 2, so it's 4th and 1, and sneak it. That works more times than not, right? Do that, because remember, again, it was 3rd and 2, and they're at the 49. 2 more yards puts them at the Patriots 49. Matt's with Brian. I can add a little bit. All right. Yeah, at the Patriots 49, you only have to get maybe 5 or 6 or 7 yards, and you've given Boswell a chance.
Yeah, correct. Just get the first down, move the chains, and instead they went for whatever cute. Now, that leads off to, you're at the end here, and the replay official actually saw Elliott down sooner than what it was, and Belichick decides, I'm going to punt one more time from the 39, pin the Steelers down to the 13. We don't care about the rest. Yippee skippy. There's 24 yards to Deontay Johnson. There's 21 yards to Allen Robinson, and trying to create some Stanford ladder play or whatever.
Yeah, you knew that nonsense was never going to work. But
First of all, I'm curious, because over all the years, all we've heard is Mike Tomlin is in, the defensive coordinator doesn't get to do their job. Mike Tomlin's fingerprints, rubber stamp is all over this defense. Maybe you saw blueprints of that more in the second half, but New England was also sitting pretty comfortable at 21-10 at halftime. Is that where we were at? And that makes a world of difference there. Okay, the defense did better in the second half, but they did also let Elliott get away with a little more, and Belichick, they got conservative. They're like, we're going to choose some clock. We're going to make them try and beat us, and they got close within that. They did force the turnover when Zappe did have to throw. So, but the first half, they just came out so flat, and they just weren't there, and maybe perhaps it was some of these other things I saw, like Patrick Peterson moving into the big slot and making some of those adjustments.
And I don't know who made the adjustments, right? But you look at what happened in the first half, right? And look, it's bad enough that they got 2 touchdowns. Forget the 11-yard one. That was a gift, right? That was a gift from the Mitch Trubisky gods. But so, you gave up 2 other touchdowns as well. The 75-yard one is a problem, right? But that one and the 59-yard drive, okay, those were letdowns. But they were doing exactly what we said they were going to do. They were attacking with the tight ends. right? And the tight ends were able to beat these guys in the middle of the field. That, to me, all right, I don't know. I don't know who's doing the prep. I don't know what's going on. But if that's Terrell Austin, somebody decided at the middle of the game, oh, yeah, gosh, the tight end is bad for us. We need to make some changes. Because tight end, I don't think, caught another ball the whole game, right? And if he did, it was one or two. They did not in the second half, right? This is their drives. Punt, interception, punt, punt, punt. That's all they did. The defense did its goddamn job in the second half, all right? It did well enough. The Steelers had 6 drives to get 11 points. And they could do it.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, actually. I could verify. Let's see. Hunter Henry. No. Nothing in the second half. Nothing.
And I'm not going to say whether that's Mike Tomlin making an adjustment there.
Yeah.
Whether it's the group making an adjustment there. But they did clean it up, right? They cleaned it up in the second half. It is still a statement on their preparation that they didn't have it cleaned up from the beginning, right? They had to know that's a weakness. They had to, because that's how Arizona beat the crap out of them. They kept going at the tight ends, right? The middle, right, attacking the weakness. All right, so.
Yeah, so I accidentally stumbled into that because, like, my other point of that was, then does he have, like, do they sit there and they come up with these plays for 3rd and 4th down, the 3rd and 2 and the 4th and 2, and it gets called in? Is there any veto power? Does he just give, like, full influence, even with Sullivan and Faulkner, to, like, I understand it was a short week. I understand it's a backup quarterback. You're trying to go with plays that everybody knows that you hope can be executed. The one to Pickens should have been executed. Okay, let's make no bones about that. There were plays left on the field for sure. That's where I say, like, if Kenny plays, those throws are probably made. Kenny's capable of missing plays too. I think the ball's even better that goes down the field, and I'm actually wondering if Tomlin didn't fall on his sword there and didn't say, well, Mitch went there and we actually drew up. No coach is ever going to say that. And people get tired of Tomlinisms and they get tired of hearing it. And it's like, there's going to be coach speak, so you don't end up, you're not going to throw your players under the bus. You're not going to say anything like dumb about, like, oh, Mason Rudolph chants. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine, like, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, you hated this guy. It's like anybody else but Trubisky at this point. This is how low this is sunk.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin is a stubborn SOB. And some of his traditionalism, it's got to change. Okay.
Well, did you see the blurbs with Ryan Clark? This is a guy who knows Mike Tomlin very well, right? Played for Tomlin, knows Tomlin, understands Mike Tomlin. Okay. Ryan Clark described the way the defense worked for years with Mike Tomlin. You had veteran leadership that you let run the team, get them in the right places, do the things that, not just in the game, but during the week of preparation. You need to be in this room at this time, young man. Get your ass over there. You had people like, the people. I don't need to go through all the list of people that you had. You had veteran leadership who managed all the younger guys and kept things running. Tomlin's used to that. He's always had that, and he doesn't anymore. And counting on those, the few veteran guys that he has, like Cam and Minka and TJ, maybe it's just the message just isn't being heard anymore. And all of a sudden, it's now got to be Mike Tomlin who says, get your ass into this room at this time. Take this shit seriously. This is your job, right? And maybe I just think it's a transition and he hasn't made it yet. It's a different scenario. Now he's got a much younger team.
Yeah, let me throw a few items on that. Number one, was somebody tried to say, oh, well, the locker room doing this. Yeah, you got to have some locker room justice. You got to have the players to take charge and be leaders. And they called in and tried to insinuate that Mike Tomlin has no control of the locker room, lost the locker room, all this other stuff. I don't find that to be true. I find it to be, that would be true if you had all the primary pieces in place there, okay? Guys like Jim Miller, Pat Kerwin, guys like that had said, hey, we were at training camp. Mike Tomlin, as a coach, he will shame you if you're not where you're supposed to be. He's a lot harder. He's not the cheerleader like player coach that everybody tried to make him out to be. Okay, they defended him on that. All right. Number two, the guys that you had that are like Cole Holcomb was a team captain. Landon Roberts was a team captain in their previous stints, and Roberts being hurt. You don't have those guys, and they haven't been there long enough, but now you got them hurt. Guys go on injured reserve. They aren't necessarily just sitting there on the sidelines and helping. I know Kenny was up in the press box. Somebody was talking about that too, you know, and it's like, yeah, he just had surgery on his foot. They're not going to have him standing on the sidelines
where he could get rolled onto, right?
Yeah, you know, or just walking around casually. Like, you need this guy to be back next, you know, Saturday. Steelers with 2 Thursday night games this year. A Monday night game. Okay, Monday night. Okay. But then they go and they play on a Saturday. They don't even get the extra full day of recovery. Just stop me with that. And then they go a full week after that, and then they'll eventually catch up and get another one there. But you had to play Blake Martinez 37% of the game. Michael Walker, 44% of the game. Trenton Thompson, 53% of the game. You think any of those 3 guys knows enough of what they're supposed to be doing, let alone telling everyone else where they need to be in position and where to go? Hell no. And it hasn't been other guys' job like TJ Watt. Maybe if you're doing a little stunt or a shift along the line, Minka, he sees everything back there. That's the guy they were looking to lean on. So that's where I was going. Like, you know, how much of this is with Mike Tomlin? How much can he do? I know you've got some things to say, and you're thinking, well, geez, could there be a new coach? Because there's a lot of everybody. We're tired of not winning playoff games. Oh, these winning seasons, they're just not good enough. And it's like, thank God we're not another franchise, because you would really be feeling it with the turnover at quarterback and head coach. I still think Tomlin's the right guy. The personnel just isn't out there, and it isn't coming the way you would expect, even with Pickett. And Pickett will still be there. They're not going to trade Mike Tomlin. I don't think they're going to fire Mike Tomlin. You think it could be different. We still have 4 games to figure that out, though. But where I'm sitting at, is there finally a hot seat for this guy? Well, somebody's looking at it from above. How do you get your house in order? It took you were, this is the thing I was going to say about him being traditional, about him being stubborn. He hires his own staff. He would not fire Matt Canada. We said he should have been gone at the bye week. Should have probably been gone before the season even started, because you have created a disaster. We understand Kenny Pickett year 2. You don't want to create all this new turmoil. You see, like, Tomlin watches a lot of football. He's a student of the game. He's not some dope sitting on the sidelines going, who doesn't know what's going on. This guy lives and breathes and does this job. But his way of sometimes putting the kid gloves on with some of these rookies, you go back to Pickett not being the starter when he was drafted in the first round and doing the Trubisky thing for almost 4 games last season. And that it's just snowballed into this. He didn't play Joey Porter Jr. to start. Look at Joey Porter Jr. He's shutting down everybody. He didn't play Keanu Benton. Okay, Keanu Benton sitting behind some guys. A little harder to get him on the field. Broderick Jones, are you kidding me? You moved up to get a left tackle to not play. He's playing right tackle. Come on, guys. Now, there's only so much you can count on with draft and free agency. You didn't get the whole offensive line fixed up. There's only so much you could coach up in different places. But there are some things where he's just stubborn. Presley Harvin III should have been out the door a while ago. Yeah, you had 2 punters make the 53-man roster. That was not by accident. It's because this guy is inconsistent, and this is also hurting the football team. Mitch Trubisky, I understand that Mason Rudolph, it's going to be a little bit longer, Brian. Give me 1 minute. The Mason Rudolph chance. I'm like, he's never going to pull Mitch Trubisky. It was a short week. He's using these excuses. But guess what? Mason Rudolph's been around for like 6 years. He's been around for this whole Canada system. And before that, he comes into a game. They didn't win against the Lions, but it wasn't his fault. He threw 50 passes. You had Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth fumble. You had him throw for 300 some yards, drop 300 on the Cleveland Browns when they had like 8 starters sitting out. This guy has come in cold and played all right. Does he necessarily win you the game? I don't know. Does he throw some picks? It's possible, but he might actually push the ball downfield in places where people can catch it, or at least get the chains moving and give you some semblance to win. Yank Trubisky's ass at halftime, and you leave him in there, and it's just like, you get to that point where, do you have the confidence that this guy can make this play? You could tell in the post-game press conference, I don't think there's any confidence there. Then why are you sticking with him? When you don't have the confidence in some of these dudes, it's time to make some changes, or the change will be made on you or for you.
Yeah, look, there are 4 games left in the season, right? And Ray Fittipaldo was on somebody's show, and he made some points that I think are very salient and very wise and very accurate. Neil Coulong texted this on Twitter last after the game. And it's the statement. It was this: I don't know if Mike Tomlin survives this. This is uncharted territory when you lose 2 games in the span of 4 days to 2 teams that are 2-10, right? Art Rooney has been, is a different generation. If this was Dan, right? If this was Dan, no change occurs, right? He'll get to the end of the year. Dan Rooney would look at that, and they might let him play his contract out. But Ray makes a very good point about this. Mike Tomlin's got a 2-year this year and next year, right? That's what he's on right now. If you are going to keep him, then you have to extend him, because you're not going to let him play out 1 year, because you need a new offensive coordinator. An offensive coordinator is not coming here. Like a good, creative new offensive coordinator is not coming here when the coach is on, a lame duck contract. That's not going to happen. So Tomlin is either going to get extended in the offseason, right, or he's going to get let go. And I think those are the only 2 things that can happen. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Fame level coach. I think he's an excellent football coach. But I am starting to think, just like with Andy Reid in the Eagles, it is time to make a change, right? And it's not up to me, and it isn't any disrespect to Mike Tomlin. He's been here for, 18 years, 17 years? I don't remember how long. It's been forever. And sometimes shit just gets stale, right? And it's time to mess things up and change things up. Okay. If that occurs, that occurs. The thing is, normally the way the Steelers operate, I would go no way. But we have a brand new GM who did things differently in the draft, who did things differently in the offseason. Art the second is not Art the first, and he's not Dan, right? I don't know if Art Rooney the second can right now, if let's say they lose out. If they lose out the rest of the season, I think Tomlin's gone. 100%, I think he's gone. Because I don't think you can, and it has nothing to do with he has a losing record, right? It is these 2 losses that will be the reason that he's gone. Because they could easily have lost these next 4 games anyway, just because of the teams they're playing, right? If Mike Tomlin somehow, because I think the only way they can make the playoffs is to win all 4 of these next 4 games. If they go 4-0 to end the season, right, and end up 11 and whatever the number is, 11 and what, 6? Yeah, math with Brian. I'm too ramped up. I can't do math with Brian right now. Maths are hard when I'm ramped up.
Yeah, and we've been going for a while, dude. We're over an hour, so
if you go 11-6, right? And you make the playoffs and you lose or win, I don't think it matters. Then you've got a much more difficult decision on your hands, right? If you split these games up and you end up with the winning record again, you're 9-8 or whatever. I don't think it's good enough. I honestly think that there is a better than 50-50 chance if the Steelers do not come out of the next 4 games 4-0, make the playoffs, that when you get to the end of this season, Art Rooney just goes, it's time to make a change.
And it's very valid with 2 2-win teams. They should have had this in the bag, and they were thinking that before they ever stepped foot in the stadium. And that's the reason why maybe they lose it. I'm only leaning the other way because you could say, well, you got Mitch Trubisky or, but still, your head coach is making the decision. This is the guy you're riding with. And after that performance, we know last year Tomlin was thinking, and he had shared starting reps in practice with Mason Rudolph for that Carolina Panthers game. And it was only 1 game that Mitch ends up playing, and they just ran the hell out of the football. Now, they're going to play. They got the Colts up next. 3 or 4 are on the road. They're winnable games. They've beaten Baltimore already.
They've beaten Baltimore in Baltimore. If Kenny's back, they have a shot. If Mitch is playing that game, they're losing.
No,
right?
not a chance in hell. And I mean, the Colts are playing some inspired football. They're without Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
Okay.
And it's porn stash Gardner Minshew, right?
And it's capable of anything. Yeah, if you put a little bit on that guy, their offensive line's been playing better. I don't think anybody was looking at on their bingo card entering the season that 3 AFC South teams could potentially make the postseason.
Okay. But let's look at this Indianapolis game. TJ's in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Highsmith is in concussion protocol. If neither of them is available to go,
oh geez, dude. Yeah, we still got a week though. We still got a week, so
but you've seen it take longer than that to get out of concussion.
I know, and I don't want to go there necessarily yet. It was just like an overview. I'm looking at it if they're healthy enough or whatever. I still don't think they'd have Kenny back for the last home game against Cincinnati.
No, I think that's
Cincinnati. I mean, Jake Browning played well. There's so many backup quarterbacks playing in the NFL right now. It's ludicrous too. And then they go to Seattle. Seattle's had their own problems. They've cooled off. Anything's possible. And then you've got Baltimore, and depends what they're playing for. Mike Tomlin has the knack to get guys to play up and finish out strong for the season.
He has demonstrated the ability to win games when you don't expect him to be able to win games. Just go back to the Mason Duck Hodges season. He has demonstrated the ability to win games with subpar talent. He is going to have to win with subpar talent. And he's going to have to win with no net. There's no net here in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, 10-8 is a halfway decent record. It might even get them in the playoffs as a wild card, a low seeded wild card. But I don't think that's going to end up being good enough. I also don't. I just don't. I think they have to win out. He has to take away the taste of these two games in the next 4 games. Otherwise, I think Art Rooney is still going to be chewing on this. This is just, I can't overstate how bad this is.
That's
in that
the point.
Short span.
It's not just that they lost; it's the fashion of which they lost, which was
who they lost.
The professor said it.
Yeah,
professor said it in the back rooms. He goes, I could handle losing. I can't handle playing bad football, and it's been bad football.
This is like throwing up in your mouth, swallowing it, throwing up again, and swallowing it, and now you just got that hanging around in your mouth because you don't have a toothbrush and you can't, and there's no mouthwash handy, and you just stick in here, and it's just in your mouth, and that's the way Art Rooney has to be feeling.
Yeah, and I know some people will say, who's the next guy, this, that, and the other thing. Hey, hire Brian Flores back. I mean, I wish they would have never let him.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, it won't be who we think it is.
No. Like, look how they found Cowher was a special teams guy, and Tomlin was a defensive coordinator, and, in fact, everyone thought Ken Wisenhunt was going to be the next.
Ryan Day. I mean...
Man, I'll tell you what, there's enough going on there in the college ranks. And then Harbaugh, they're looking to extend him for however much money. And right before that even came out, everybody was talking about like how he was going to be looking to go to the pros because of the scandal and things like that over there at, that university up north. But anyways, I think we need to put a bow on this. A little bit of a longer one because I don't know what we have at the beginning of the week. I was going to have a special guest. Some people, 2%ers, will laugh about this, but book author John Harris and the Tomlin book, we may be putting that on hold just because we don't want you trolls spoiling it all. These nice folks that are out there in this great book, you're going to need to cool off from these terrible losses before we even consider maybe I don't want to put a book author in a bad position
to that kind of
I don't want to put John in a bad position because everyone's going to bitch about the coach. If you'd like to have, for those of you that are out there that are listening, watching, wherever you may be, thank you, by the way, for supporting Steel City Underground podcast. We were going a little long today, but if you'd like to hear from John, and I'll have him on the show, but I'm just afraid there's too many internet trolls that are going to be talking, garbage, and this guy doesn't deserve it.
I need to. For you 2%ers, 1%ers, half percenters, quarter percenters, even for you guys who just I needed this. I needed to get this crap off my chest.
Thank
you for being my therapy session.
I thought you were going to be a lot more heated, and you may have seen me getting on the brink of about as hot as you'll ever get me. That game, I'll tell you what, Mitch just pulling up on that play, that was the one that really pissed me off even more than at least they didn't go like I was looking for the shotgun run play, and they corrected that for the most part. They were getting Najee, they were trying to get him downhill. They just weren't going to be able to do this. The Patriots, they had to be able to throw the ball. And I just don't know, like Tomlin it's just so stubborn with the coaching decisions, whether that's his own staff, whether that's the guys he plays. There was like some type of report. I don't know when to believe Jerry Dulac, but I'm hedging towards like 1 out of every 10 things he says ends up being true. I don't know who he talks to behind the scenes there, but they were talking about benching Kenny. And I'm like, the only reason you're going to bench Kenny is because he's been banged up and he just can't get the throwing mechanics right. I mean, I watched Mitch just like he hops off his back feet and just the things. It's bizarre, man. It's painful to watch because if we feel that way, that was what somebody just said earlier about George Pickens. And it's like, if we feel the way we do, what do you think they feel like on the field? Like, where's the confidence at behind him? And when they were going into that whole offseason, and they ended up signing Trubisky, which I didn't like, but he was the best of the worst that were available because it was not a strong free agent class whatsoever. And then there was also the draft, and it wasn't the strongest draft class available. And I said, okay, but there was nobody that really had a vote of confidence for Mason Rudolph. And that's just kind of one of the reasons they bring him back enough because there's emergency quarterback. They feel he can maybe do whatever. But Tomlin did this before with Michael Vick. Yeah. You had Bruce Gradkowski was the backup quarterback in training camp and go 2 weeks in or something. He gets hurt and they sign a veteran quarterback in Michael Vick. It's the last year he will play in the NFL. He was 36 years of age. And they bring him in to be the backup over Landry Jones. Because Tomlin's just like, well, I had developed this guy and everything. And you remember back then, I was like, hey, Landry doesn't look half too bad. I think he can run the offense. Like the preseason games, like I know there was one he threw 4 picks like early in his career. And it was like 3 of those were tipped balls off of guys that are, you know, are strong afterthoughts when it comes to NFL playing careers, right? And it took Michael Vick. They end up eking out a victory with the Chargers or whatever, the long pass to Marcus Wheaton, Le'Veon Bell, maybe a questionable block by Rosie Nix or whoever. They end up winning on the road, and then they come home and they play Arizona. Same kind of thing. Arizona was not a strong team at this point. And it was like, 2015 season. And Vic ends up pulling a hammy or whatever it is. And they finally play Landry. And Landry comes out there and he starts. And this team had Martavis Bryant. This team had Antonio Brown. And Michael Vick couldn't find any of these guys. And I feel like it's the same thing all over again. And I was like, what does it take to get Mitch Trubisky off the field just so we could see if Mason could connect some passes? There are some people that are out there. And I think it's even bold coming from my standpoint of having defended him over the years. Next franchise quarterback, or whatever. Anybody could surprise you. Brock Purdy came out there and surprised you. The problem is Brock Purdy has Kyle Shanahan as his coach, okay? Just not the same. You make a system, and then you got some wise offensive minds.
Yeah,
Tomlin
you got Christian
not an offensive
McCaffrey and Debo Samuels, and I mean,
you've got some real dudes too.
Anyway,
and their line.
Let me just say this, and because there are people who give me crap in the comments about not supporting Mason and whatnot. Mitch is terrible, right? Mitch is just flat out terrible. I will take Mason over Mitch in a heartbeat right now. And it's not because I think Mason is going to be the be all end all. I've seen Mason and I've seen that story and I've seen him be both good and terrible. I have said all along, he is a quality backup quarterback. Here's what I used to say. So is Mitch, but he's not. He's not a quality backup quarterback. He is barely a third string quarterback. I don't know that I'd sign Mitch Trubisky to my practice squad at this point. So yeah, give me Mason Rudolph. Give me Mason Rudolph, not because I think Mason Rudolph is great, but I think he has to be no worse than Mitch Trubisky, right? And let's just see what happens. I don't think to be honest with you, like you're talking about, okay, well, you had Martavis and you had Antonio and we got Pickens and we got Freiermuth and we got Deontay. we don't have an offense that knows how to run those guys open. Right. So
Yeah.
I'm still not convinced that Mitch is going to be successful because it, as we've been saying, it's still Matt Canada's offense. But I'd rather give him the shot and see what happens than put Mitch Trubisky back out there for another 30 seconds.
Yeah, Mason, 2019, when he got thrown in there and he was playing with the likes of guys like Johnny Holton, even Jones, or Deion Kane pulled from a practice squad somewhere, Kareth White, Tony Brooks, James, or whatever, Benny Snell, because James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster were hurt. Deontay was in his rookie year. He also got kind of banged up. People are going to say, I made a tweet about this, and somebody said, well, Mason got benched or whatever, and he wasn't completing 60% of his passes on his games. He came back from a concussion where he got cracked by Earl Thomas in that Baltimore Ravens game, and then had gotten benched, was probably still rattled from the incident with Myles Garrett and getting slammed in the head with his own helmet. He did come back in the Jets game, throws a touchdown, but broke his collarbone in the process. He had 4 games that year where he threw for over 200 yards. His high was 251. He had 4 games with 2 touchdown passes apiece in them. And of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 appearances, he only had 1 game he did not throw a touchdown pass in, and he was playing with guys that were far less talented than the names that you had just mentioned. He didn't have a very full, he had the 1 game against Cleveland where he went 22 of 39, 315 with 2 touchdowns and an interception without all the starters against Cleveland Browns final week of 2020. And really just the Detroit Lions game I mentioned, 30 of 50, 242 touchdown and a pick back in 2021. So he hasn't thrown a pass all of last year, and he hasn't thrown a pass this year either. And I know that could be some of the hesitancy. As far as the hot seat thing, Brian, you could close up some more of this. I know, you know what, we're going to let this roll, and we're just not going to worry about something earlier next week. The guys that run things differently, and you got Andy Weidel to come over from Philadelphia. Philadelphia, they canned Andy Reid, but it wasn't like instant success either. They had to move on some different coaches. You remember they used all those picks for Carson Wentz.
Yep.
They just so happened to create some controversy by getting Jalen Hurts. Nobody actually knew if Jalen Hurts was going to be any good. They fired Doug Peterson, who did get them a chip, and then went with Nick Sirianni. So there was a lot of like, what do you want to say? Quick reactions, quick moves and stuff that were in the process of getting the Eagles to where they are right now. And they may still have some of their own issues in that too, but they're doing far better than the Steelers are at this point.
Well, yeah.
Get criticized.
I mean, people say it all the time. Oh, somebody will snap Mike Tomlin up. They very well might, and they probably should. He is a better football coach than a lot of the coaches that are out there. Somebody probably will snap him up if he wants to be, right? Remember, he has now been doing this for 17 years. And just like Bill Cowher, who said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I got kids. I want to see them do stuff. I want to go spend time with my daughters. Who knows what Mike Tomlin actually wants to do if this ride were to end, right? It's not out of the spectrum of reality. It's only happened maybe once or twice. I don't know how often, where they could try and trade him, Mike Tomlin. If you're not going to renew him, right? If your options are, we're going to let him go, or we're going to, keep him. If you're not going to do that, right? If you're not going to keep him, sure, shop it. See if somebody's interested. See if somebody will give you something for Mike Tomlin, and then you can make a trade. But again, Mike Tomlin has to be willing to go, right? It's not the same as with players, right?
Yeah.
It just isn't exactly the same. Mike Tomlin can just be like, I don't think so. I'm not interested. Sorry, guys. You don't want to keep me? It's cool. I'm going to retire. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm not going to coach, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or wherever. I'm not going there, wherever it is. So I don't think anything is out of the realm of possibility yet, but nothing is going to, let's be clear, nothing is going to change for the next 4 games, right?
Oh, no.
Mike Tomlin's not going to be let go mid-season. He very well could be let go at the end of this season, but not mid-season. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm going to say this too, and it's not like Sean Payton. Sean Payton retired, still under contract.
Yes.
So for him to go somewhere else, that necessitated compensation to the team that owned his contract. That's a lot different than just shoving someone out. It's almost unprecedented. I know John Gruden had happened before as well.
I mean, it has to be a mutual thing. Like Tomlin has to be like, yeah, I want to go there. That sounds like a great opportunity for me. I loved it here, but I'm in. I'm all in to go to, LA or not the Raiders. I don't know. I'm all in to go wherever I'm going to go.
Those LA spots, you look at Brandon Staley, and I don't know. Is it Antonio Pierce over with the Raiders? He might actually. Raiders should have kept that Rich Bisaccia. That guy, the special teams coach, they should have done that instead of like the Josh McDaniels, clown show that's going on. That guy had all the respect, not McDaniels, but I can't say his name properly, but Rich. He had all the respect from people. He'd been in the league for so many years, and people were happy. And the same thing with Pierce. Pierce he inspires his players. It's not a talented roster. A lot of people, this was the thing that came through too. Mike Tomlin, he has all of these talented players. And then one of these callers, the same caller, he's like, he can't develop players. And they were like, well, wait, which is it? If they're talented, how would you know if you can't develop them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know. Maybe they really do just stink and they're not good. There's a lot of times we've had the wool pulled over our eyes and thought the players were going to amount to more than they end up amounting to.
Let's be honest and fair. We wear black and gold binders, all of us. Mm-hmm. Every fan out there is like, oh, we drafted a 7th round draft pick. He'll be a Hall of Famer. Right. I mean, we hear it too often. This guy's going to be, he's the best. If you just did this, he would be so awesome. Put him in. No, there's a reason that they don't. No, not every guy. It's not a magic uniform, right? It feels like it to us, but it's not. Let's be real. It's not a magic uniform. You don't put on the black and gold and suddenly play at a Hall of Fame level. If you're bad, you're just bad.
Yeah. Hey, let's bring up something else real here too. They're not going to tank to draft another quarterback.
They're not
going to be within earshot. You've got how many teams that have 10 losses already? Then the Steelers, to get to 10 losses, do have to lose all 4 games. Some of these other teams will lose more than 10, including the New England Patriots that just won. You have Washington sitting at 4-9, the Giants at 4-8, the Bears at 4-8, Carolina's at 1-11, Arizona's at 3-10. Probably at best, you're looking at it right now. Let's see. The Bears have Carolina's picked number 1 overall. They'll be probably picking twice in the top 5 and maybe moving on from Justin Fields possibly. And I know people are going to want to get somebody else's trash. They think it's somebody else's treasure. How often has that ever happened where a quarterback leaves one team and is actually good with another? How many times? I mean, somebody said Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was already Tom Brady. I mean, Peyton Manning was already Peyton Manning. We're talking about somebody who wasn't already good, all of a sudden becoming great in a different uniform. It doesn't happen.
All right. I'm just letting you know. New England is at the number 2 pick. There is as much chance that Bill Belichick trades out of that pick as there is that he picks somebody. And there is as much chance that if he picks somebody, they will be a bust. He's not good at first-round picks. He has never been good at first-round picks.
Here or there. I want to say somebody like Patrick Chung, maybe Richard Seymour, Ty Law, somebody like that. Like I have to go look at their order, but they have just as many ones that don't work out too. It's usually their 2nd round picks. Ironically, we say that about the Steelers too. So, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And it's like, okay, Arizona, they have a different staff and stuff. Kyler Murray might be a guy. Washington, you think they want Sam Howell? The Bears are back on the clock again. The Jets, is Aaron Rodgers going to return? The Zach Wilson experiment. The Jets have been through this ringer a few times.
Yep.
The Giants have Daniel Jones. Is that the guy they're hitching to? Is Will Levis the guy with Tennessee? New Orleans, they got, went the free agent path with Derek Carr. Tampa. Right, the Steelers are all the way down currently at 18th.
All right.
So they're still behind. Okay. So Denver's probably okay. Chargers are okay. Raiders might need somebody. Sorry, I read that backwards. Bills are all right.
Look at the teams that they may actually get ahead of. All right. Buffalo could get ahead of them. Right. They could end up being ahead because Buffalo could turn it around.
Okay.
Seattle could do well. The Rams have been playing better. Forget the Bengals. I think the Bengals will stay ahead of them. Even despite that nice game that they had.
Yeah, but Atlanta's behind them right now, and I think Atlanta ends up falling too.
Yeah.
And let's see, Cleveland. Houston has one of Cleveland's picks. Cleveland will be interesting to see how they finish up with their backups.
Here's the thing. I don't think that they even have a chance of, even if they lose out, of sniffing the top 10.
And then what will it take to get into that top 10? You're sacrificing everything.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing everything. And I just I don't see it for what? This is where the difference was with taking Kenny Pickett and the people that don't like Kenny Pickett or they were against that move. They paid nothing extra to get a look. And it's a guy that shares the same facilities that they saw every day and had a better pulse on than probably anyone else in the league. Does Kenny last? If it goes, they could say, oh, he was a second-round pick, a third-round pick. I don't think he falls that far into that draft anyways. That's a conversation for a whole other day. But there's just never any guarantee. We've gone through the first-round quarterbacks list how many times, and I could definitely do it again. There's been so many over the years. Let's see, how many years do you want to go back? Kenny's in year 2.
Well, I will. I mean, I told you the year that they picked Kenny Pickett, I felt it was a historically bad quarterback grouping. But
yeah, okay. So a couple of years ago, unless you get the guy that's a bona fide number 1 overall, usually we've said it over the years. The Peyton Mannings, okay, Joe Burrow, right? Those guys tend to work out. They're just so, even Trevor Lawrence for that matter, I think still has that path to be there. But yeah, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert throws the balls everywhere, but they don't win games for however many other reasons other than maybe quarterback. And he's definitely got the talent around him. But I look at Kenny almost like I looked at Tua. He railed a lot, couldn't stay healthy, couldn't stay on the field. Steelers are in a position where they might get a new offensive brain in here. Maybe something will change with that. Who else is in this list? Probably not anybody. Jordan Love. How long did it take Jordan Love to get on the field, too? So he was seasoning for a while. He's had his ups and downs. He's been playing well recently. You go back, let me see. I'll look at 2019 and maybe even 2018 going back to Mason Rudolph. But you go back that far, and people are talking about, why didn't they have Ben's successor? They didn't plan. Get out of here. Like, it just wasn't going to happen that way. So Kyler Murray, number 1 overall. Daniel Jones. Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, but his path was pretty much, he was almost out of the league to begin with. Those were your top guys. And then
I love Dwayne Haskins, but he was overdrafted.
Yeah, Drew Lock in the second round to the Denver Broncos, who've been trying to get this right for ever since Peyton Manning left, and they had Brock Osweiler in place, and that didn't work out. Then that guy even came back. They drafted Paxton Lynch, Drew Lock. They've tried like everything. They had Joe Flacco there for a while.
Here's the thing.
Like, the guy that was in Minnesota. There's so many.
Go back to even what I said. The year they drafted Kenny, I said, no, don't draft Kenny. Wait next year and try and draft CJ, right? That's what I said, right? But let's say they didn't draft Kenny and they just have Mitch all year. Are they still going to lose enough games to get CJ? No, they weren't. They were not going to be 1 or 2, right? They just weren't. And
not with what Arizona did, or I'm sorry, not Arizona, but Arizona traded out.
Yeah.
And gave the Texans did the whole draft day movie.
Yeah.
With the picks 2 and 3. Bryce Young was gone and CJ was gone. CJ Stroud, of course. And then Anthony Richardson, we don't know, was looking like, chiseled like a Greek god. His story's still to TBD because he didn't get to play much this year. So, yeah, and there's still people that are questioning, the Josh Allens of the world. You had Baker Mayfield. You had Sam Darnold that went. I mean, Lamar Jackson, people will still say Lamar's a running back. You just never know. So we're really long-winded it off to a lot of pats, but this sends people into some like just crazy full moon type of shit. Like they will talk about everything from trading Mike Tomlin to tanking for a quarterback. More than likely, and people are going to be like, so let's just say this. Mike Tomlin's the coach. Let's say next year and Kenny Pickett's the quarterback next year. What's it going to take to get there? I think Mike Tomlin's got to win. I don't even think he could split these 2 games. What's the record right now? 7-6.
7-6.
So they would be 9-8. It would be above 500, and everybody would be PO'd again.
And they'd be out of the playoffs. I don't think they make it at 9-8.
Yeah, and they might know that as fast as the next to last game, Seattle and Baltimore. Do they bring Kenny? They even bother bringing Kenny back? And now you got the big question mark of who's Kenny as a player. His stats are just, they're not up there. And I think they would ride with Kenny into next season. But I think both have to show us something
I'm
now.
going to be honest with you. I think Kenny is around. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback next year. And one of the reasons I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback next year is because I don't think they're going to be in a position to draft a quarterback next year. Even if they lose out, I don't think they're in a position to draft.
Oh, but get somebody in the third round that you're going to develop, Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and who's that end up being? Yeah. Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. But I think that there's a shot that it's Kenny. Well, not even a shot. I will call the shot that Kenny's the quarterback next year. Okay, because I think Kenny plays out his rookie deal as the quarterback. Now, the real question is, who's his head coach going to be and who's his offensive coordinator going to be? And if it's Tomlin, they still have to get an OC, right? Because if it's Tomlin, then it's going to be Tomlin for longer than just next year, right? Because that's the only way they're going to get an OC to come here, right? Fine. I'm not saying I'm against that, to be very, very frank. Because you get next year to then really determine who Kenny is, what Kenny is, whether he's the guy. If they go 4-13 next year with Kenny Pickett, guess what? Then they draft a quarterback.
Yeah, that's why I say he's still got another year. Yeah. The cost of getting that quarterback and, the people that might be free agents, I think is still like a Band-Aid on something like that too.
People forget.
I will look at that I'm going to look at that real quick too. I need to pull up the list of
people forget what it takes to get a top tier quarterback in the draft. It is not, oh yeah, we can have a sub. You have to suck so bad, right? To get up there and you all Steelers fans, prepare yourself. You have to live through like a 1-16 or 2-15 season to have the shot at getting one of those guys, right? You can't give away everything else to do it. You have to live through that kind of a season.
Yeah.
And right now you're not going to. So,
all right, final thought, Brian. Here's the free agent class pending any moves and people returning to teams next year. Kirk Cousins, age 36. Not interested in
unless Kirk Cousins is willing to make a lot less money than he's been making. I don't want him.
Yeah. Ryan Tannehill.
No.
Also 36.
Out.
Absolutely out. Jacoby Brissett.
Out.
Tyrod Taylor.
What?
Marcus Mariota.
Go away.
Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston, age 30, Gardner Minshew,
no, we don't need
Teddy Bridgewater, Tyler Huntley, Josh Dobbs, and now you're getting into Easton Stick, Nate Sudfeld, Blaine Gabbert, Carson Wentz, Brandon Allen, Kyle Allen, Trevor Siemian, AJ McCarron, Josh Johnson, Nathan Peterman, Mason Rudolph, et cetera.
Stop saying names of really terrible quarterbacks.
Yeah, there's really who's available unless somebody else gets cut. I don't think you're ever jumping at any of these guys.
Look, it's Kirk. Out of that list, the only one I would say, if you've decided to give up on Kenny, the only one you're trying out there is Kirk Cousins. Right?
And for how long do you have him for, realistically?
Again, that's a year, maybe 2 that you've got Kirk Cousins. And that's just not the Steelers' MO. They're not looking at that point to do that, right? And are they going to be – they're not going to dump their rookie deal quarterback to go pay somebody $40 million a year for 2 years. Forget it.
Yep, and most of the other guys that people think are going to dump won't even be available for the free agent class or free agency until the following year. Guys like, Jordan Love, even Zach Wilson for that matter, Trey Lance, Tua. And these are just guys that haven't been. Some of these guys will get longer deals, like Tua will.
Get a deal.
Yeah,
Jordan
Justin
Love, based
Fields.
on the way he's playing, is going to get a deal. So forget those.
Justin Fields, Mac Jones, it's.
Please not Doughboy.
Okay, folks, that'll do it for us. Yes. I think we've given enough where people can pause and hopefully come back. And it's not, hopefully, we didn't mean to be too long of a show. I actually only wanted to do about half of this today. But hey, we get a mini bye and we'll be back around to you. Terry will be up next with the WTF. Don't forget, for those of you who do like to read, a good gift, maybe stocking stuffer for the people who aren't too fickle of a fan and do want to read the book about Mike Tomlin, forward by Tony Dungy. Oh, man, there's some.
I'm looking forward to it.
If only I could tell you, I am too. If only I could tell you some of the takes I heard on the radio. I heard people that were like, they should have never even hired Tomlin as a coach. And, here's the other one. I got to say this real quick. There's an article, it's quite several years old. It's like I have to pull it out every summer about Mike Tomlin winning with Bill Cowher's players. About maybe, what did I say, about 8 of them on that first Super Bowl. There were 3 years between teams before Tomlin got to the Super Bowl. And there were guys like Lawrence Timmons and Lamar Woodley that never played one down of football. They weren't even in the NFL yet, let alone played for Bill Cowher. Santonio Holmes, who was a rookie on the team that had the Super Bowl hangover when Bill retired. People tend to forget that Bill was also a 6th seed and had to win all those games on the road. And you had the shoelace tackle by Ben Roethlisberger with the Bettis fumble, and things had to go your way, right? And it took Bill how many years to win a Super Bowl? What, like 15 years? And he got the one, and he lost some AFC title games, and he was bested by Bill Belichick in the past too. And so those things drive me crazy, because you look at the roster, even look at the roster 3 years ago for the Steelers, and you still have Ben as a starter. You still have Marquise Pouncey, you still have David DeCastro, and it's a lot different. You have Bud Dupree. It's a lot different. The 3 years is a lot of time in the NFL.
Very long time.
And that drives me crazy.
And somebody tweeted this out, and I agree with it. If you're going to badmouth Mike Tomlin, you better not say Bill Cowher was a great coach, because their records are just eerily similar. And
they're Hall of Fame coaches.
They're both Hall of Fame coaches.
Yep.
They just are. They just are.
And the playoff record gets pulled out a lot with Tomlin. There's only, how many playoff games do you have total? You have 7 teams that make it. So you have 6 games on the opening weekend. So only 6 teams are going to win. 6 coaches are going to win for sure that weekend. That's the minimum. 6 coaches are going to win. Then you got the 2 teams that enter with the byes. They could win. A maximum of 8 coaches are going to win a playoff game this year. That's a quarter of the NFL. The record looks worse because Tomlin made the playoffs and didn't win. Guess who else also had that? Had that same thing. Choke artist. Andy Reid and the guy who did the forward on the book, Tony Dungy. Always considered, along with Peyton Manning, to be choke artists. That'll do it for us. My name's Joe. Brian, thank you for joining me on the weekend and getting this, banging this one out. Man, I just hope that it's not bad football we have to watch going forward. There's a lot to chew on here, and we'll probably be bringing up a lot of these same points in the near future as well. So thanks for joining us, folks. If you listened to this far, we appreciate you, and we'll catch you for the pregame Terry show in the middle of the week, and then the pregame for the Indianapolis Colts later on next week. Until then, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. We encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.